My story is not unique, but it is very unique in the sense of what I went through, although people still go through what I'm about to tell you. I was classically trained from the age of 11 to be a concert pianist, and I grew up in New York City. And I went to undergraduate to study film composition and planned to go to graduate school to write for Hollywood. A very aspirational, how many 18-year-olds know what they want to do when they grow up? I was that 18-year-old. And during the summer between my junior and senior year, I started to experience these weird headaches, and I got back to school to kick off senior year, and my left hand wasn't articulating. I had lost some kind of motor coordination, and when you play piano, there's something called arpeggiation, which is when you go up and down the keys, and it just wasn't working the way it used to. And I was, why is this not happening? I kept going back and back and back. The campus doctors got misdiagnosed with everything from Epstein-Barr, meningitis, the flu, a mini stroke, and then they ultimately thought I just had like carpal tunnel syndrome, which was ridiculous. They gave me Robitussin when didn't work, ridiculous. And got home, saw my GP, who said, yeah, there's probably something really wrong with you, but just come back in 2 weeks if it gets worse. Totally disregarding that there was something wrong with me. And it was in those 2 weeks that everything changed. I started to have stroke and seizure and slurred speech and blurred vision and fainting. Got back, finally finished this semester, MRI, brain cancer. This giant golf ball in the back of my brain. And I remember saying, well, thank God it's something. I'm not crazy, but holy shit, it's something that isn't really good, doesn't belong there. Long story short, surgery, radiation, declined chemo because it was going to give me neuropathy if I ever were going to play piano again. But I was able to play after they took the tumor out. I just had lost 10 years of training in my left hand. So I would not be able to go to grad school. I would not be able to be the classical pianist I had aspired to be. And I settled back to live what remained of the shell of my life, being kicked out of the hospital saying, have a nice life. And it really wasn't okay. I muddled through the 90s, built a new career in the agency world in healthcare marketing, ironically, and they pulled me back in kind of stuff. One of the clients at the agency I was working for were one of the drugs I took to stave off inflammation from radiation. So I just couldn't escape it. Rebuilt my life, 10 years in the agency world, started to play piano again after about 5 years. Got married, had kids, but along the way, began to play for patients. I gave concerts for cancer survivors and communities and caregivers and some pharma executives, which was interesting. And I got plucked out of the ether by my first peer match. I finally met a guy who had cancer in college after 7 years. I went 7 years without peer support, not knowing there was another person that wasn't 8 or 80 with cancer. He happened to be a lobbyist for DC for civil liberties on childhood cancer awareness. And he built me into this whole universe, and I got cultivated for 5 or 6 years, and eventually I started Stupid Cancer in 2007 off the heels of a report from the NCI, the National Cancer Institute, and the CDC that Gen Xers at the time, millennials today, have the worst 5-year survival rates of any age group out there. And that is the first time they've actually bucketed an age group versus a disease market, and we're focused on people like me. I was 30 at the time. I'm consummate Gen Xer, and it bothered me that what I went through 10 years prior was still happening to people like me today. Stupid Cancer was engineered to be a brand that I wished that I had had. It is engineered to be a group that you didn't know you needed, but are thrilled to find out exists for you. It was built by patients and for patients, and it's with patients in this very engaged, disruptive way that's sticky and edgy, but you have the power not just to help yourself feel better, but to pave the way to help someone just like you not have to go through the same kind of crap that you went through. So that's the not so brief origin story of Stupid Cancer. Industry needs to focus on patients because not necessarily that patients know better, but patients have the wisdom and experience, and you can't possibly think you know better than your end user. But the problem is that industry doesn't see their end user as the patient. They see the provider as the end user. And that is a huge sea change that has to be completely disrupted for anything meaningful to happen. So from the vantage of patients, patient activists, patient advocate organizations like Stupid Cancer, we are making them irrelevant. We are building the tech, building the platforms, building the standards of care, the best practices. We're building the academic research around what we need, regardless of their involvement or investment, because they don't know what we need, and there has been such a hesitation to reach across the aisle and agree that there's a dialogue here. And don't get me started on the regulatory, but there are ways around it to make a difference. Pharma executives need to know to stop cutting their budgets. Period. Plain and simple. It sends a bad message, whether you need it or not. All I hear is we're cutting our budget, we fired this team, we're not going to do this now. And I'm sick and tired of having patient centricity experts at pharma with a nice business card that only want to data mine my interests without giving me any money. We're a charity. We deserve to be paid. We're partners. And at the end of the day, if you don't see us as value and you just see us as product, then there's no conversation to be had. So to the pharma executives, rethink the way you understand goals and success, because what you're doing now just isn't working.